welcome back to Inside the Minds of Authors. I'm so excited you guys are joining us. And if you were here this morning for our first guest, hopefully you got as much fun as I did talking to Mr. Phil. I'm an amazing author this afternoon as well, the fabulous Miss Lynda. And because you guys are here to know what do we have going on, remember, Inside the Minds of Authors, the podcast dedicated to bring you incredible authors with very, very fun books. So hopefully, if you're new to the podcast, go ahead and subscribe. You don't want to miss a single episode, whether you're watching us live on Facebook or YouTube, or you're catching the recordings, whichever way you are. We're here to introduce you to new authors and new books. And granted, you're here to figure out who do we have now. So let's bring her up. Hello, Miss Lynda. How are you?
I'm doing very well, thank you. How about yourself?
I'm wonderful. I'm so glad you're here. So I can't wait to hear about this book, and I know our listeners and viewers are ready to get started. So I'm going to turn it over to you so you can introduce the book and do the reading.
Thank you so much. All right, so I have a collection of short stories with me today. It's titled The Beauty and the Hell of It. And it's about women who are pushing back on expectations from society about who they should be and how they should behave. I think women are often pressured to make themselves small to accommodate how believe they should behave. And that doesn't serve us. So these women are saying to heck with that and coloring outside the lines. So I have a reading ready for you. It's from a story called Blind Date, and we're starting from the top. I did it because I wanted to throw back a few glasses of Merlot, and the thought of having a meal with it was a nice touch compared to the ramen noodles waiting for me at home. It was a Thursday, the first week of the month, and I was waiting on my direct deposit to buy groceries. My brother worked at Lena's, this Italian bistro. They really knew their gnocchi, and they were classy, even if they were crowded. The seating was Tony's pet peeve. Like, pull your chair in already, will you? I guess it was a nice place if you were trying to impress someone and you liked garlic bread. I came to drop off the car keys. I needed the neon for an interview and some errands that day, and while Tony didn't mind taking the bus to work, he hated taking it home. I waited for Tony near the bar, trying not to be in anyone's way, while I studied the half-liter of house red on the table nearest me and listened to my stomach growl. I had lunched on two watermelon starburst fruit chews. The white damask napkins were contorted into origami swans, and the man at the table with the wine looked equally uncomfortable. He kept checking his watch. It was a little endearing that he was wearing one. It might have been a status symbol, but I couldn't tell a Timex from a Rolex. Blind date, Tony whispered, leaning up against the bar beside me. And he's totally getting stood up. I looked at his crisp pinstripe shirt, probably freshly starched and pressed from the cleaners, and tried to summon some empathy. My stomach growled again. I'm not sure it's possible to feel empathy when you're hungry. It's one of those gentrified emotions reserved for people who already have their needs met. How long has he been waiting? Tony shrugged. 25 minutes, at least. Someone should put him out of his misery. Yeah, I was at the table in 3 strides. Sorry I'm late. He looked up, relieved. His smile faded a little. Weren't you just at the bar? My face reddened as I dropped my coat over the back of the chair. It's so embarrassing. I was having trouble finding you. Didn't you give my name to the hostess? I sat down and reached for the wine. Oh, she was no help. That waiter, I waved at Tony, helped me find you. He turned to look at Tony, giving him a nod, and I was satisfied that he was satisfied. I rewarded myself by gulping down half the glass of wine. The thing about losing your job is that you lose all your confidence, which is pretty sad because that's all I had left. I didn't even get to take a cardboard file box with my personal effects because I was a proofreader with a touchdown space. I just left with my messenger bag like any other day. I spent the next 2 days watching the Women's Network, coiled in a pit of blankets on the couch, fortifying myself with cartons of chow mein, ginger beef, and spring rolls. When I finally showered, I realized something extra had washed down the drain. I couldn't place what was missing until I phoned my brother to ask if I could crash on his couch so I could sublet the apartment. He asked if I would be okay, and the thing I needed to reassure him wasn't there. I didn't know, and I didn't like it. It was my job to know stuff, except now I didn't have a job. I missed my confidence each time I wrote a cover letter and sent out my resume, and also before grocery shopping because I was afraid to check my account balance. I winced each time I punched my PIN into the debit machine. One day I was an adult, and the next I was just a kid, afraid of her own shadow. For the first time in my 28 years, I understood why people bought self help books. Losing your confidence is a bitch. It was like I forgot what shelf I put it on. Scratch that. I knew exactly what shelf it was on, and it was just too high to reach. So there I was, jumping, arms in the air, snatching at it, and feeling more stupid by the minute. I was doing all the things women are taught to do to cheer themselves up, buying lipstick in a bold shade you'll never wear so you can tell yourself you're being adventurous, soaking in a hot bath until your eczema burns so you can say you practice self care, going to the movies alone to show you're independent, learning to knit, creative, until your dishcloth looks like a loincloth because you've dropped so many stitches, and yoga because people who exercise think they're better than everyone else. My date, as I decided to think of him, watched me from narrowed eyes as I refilled my glass. He was no hardship to look at. From chin to nose, he had a Michael Fassbender thing going on. The gleaming shark tooth smile, equal parts attractive and predatory. A jawline sharper than the knives in my kitchen, and a well trimmed goatee with one tiny patch where the hair didn't grow, likely from a scar. He had green eyes and a fringe of sooty lashes that could have sold a lot of mascara for Maybelline. Clearly, I wasn't in the habit of sitting across from men who looked like celebrities. How was your day? I thought about my interview with Fast Forward Weekly and how I had taken my 14-year-old cat to the vet to be euthanized earlier in the morning. I tried not to think about what I was doing at this table. Still young, too early to tell. He seemed to like that answer. It unfurrowed his brow. How was yours? Pretty tame, so far. He winked, and I was almost as worried as I was hungry and faint. I'd had a cup of coffee in the morning, and not a drop of liquid had passed my lips since. I was certain I'd cried at least 6 ounces of tears between the vet and the interview. The wine was hitting me hard. Do you know what you're having? I didn't know how far I could take this, but if I could manage it, I was going all the way to dessert. I haven't finished looking at the menu. Great, he was one of those, the kind who read the entire menu twice before they place an order. He was frowning again. Did you dye your hair? Oh no. You know, most women prefer not to be asked about that. Nothing beats 2 glasses of red on an empty stomach to restore your confidence. Sorry, it's just that Jimmy said you were a brunette. I like to switch things up. Well, it looks natural. Red suits you. It's auburn, and I'll pass the compliment to my stylist. Tony delivered a bread basket and drizzled the plate with oil. He told us to enjoy, and then he turned to me and mouthed, I hope you choke, which is a good place to stop.
Oh my god. I was not prepared for that ending.
Oh, there's more.
I'm so excited. Okay, we need to jump in, Miss Linda. I have a
Yes.
question. I'm sure our viewers as well, and they want to know so much more. I need to know where did this idea come from? What is this book about? It's a collection of short stories. What is this? Is it from the same perspective, the same person? Give us more. Bring us into this book, please.
Okay, so the short stories aren't linked with the exception of two. And I gathered the stories around the idea of women who were frustrated. And the thing I was frustrated with was my English degree in literature. And I was reading all of these men, anti heroes. And I loved reading anti heroes like Holden Caulfield or the narrator in Raymond Carver's Cathedral. They were jerks, but they were fascinating. And what I was seeing as a pattern was when women were their counterparts, they were being stereotyped as bitches or um, mad women, crazy women, or whores. And it was very frustrating to see that. I wanted them to have the same dignity of being complex, meaty characters and being anti heroines. So it's a
Mhm.
collection of anti heroines.
That is such a unique perspective because normally we don't talk about it. I think women are placed in like categories. Like you either have to be this good or you're just evil, and there's no in between.
Yes.
So I love the fact that you made the connection that men are allowed to be anti-heroes and we still fall in love with them, like the morally
Yep.
gray, villain everybody loves about. We're okay with that, but the women
Yeah.
do not have that perspective. So how many short stories are in this book? Tell us.
There are 14 in the collection.
Nice.
Yeah.
How long did it take you? Because I find short stories to be hard and easy at the same time. You can come up with a bunch quickly, but putting them all tied together takes time. How long did it take you to put this book into this perspective?
So the stories were actually written over a span of 15 years.
Nice.
The earliest one dates back to 2008. And there was a period in there where I didn't write any fiction. I kind of set it aside, and then the pandemic happened. And I saw people posting on social media that they were using their time to write books. And they were sharing that some of them were actually getting their books published. And I thought, this is something you've wanted to do your whole life. So why not now? And I decided to enroll for a mentorship program at Humber Polytechnic. And over a period of 18 months is when I tied the whole collection together, got the revisions done, and wrote the stories to round off the collection.
You have a lot of pieces in here, which I'm infatuated by because they're so good. But you have a central theme, and when we talked earlier, you kind of mentioned it. You very much focus on mental health. Why is this such a big focus for you? And why do you want to bring it to the forefront, especially now?
It's very much because it's been the central theme of my life. It's shaped my life. I've lived with bipolar disorder for over 20 years, and I just I see how impacted people are by it, and yet there's still such a stigma around it. Like I wish I could think of one person I know whose life hasn't been impacted by mental health, whether they've lost someone to suicide or have a family member who struggles, or whether they struggle with it themselves. So I thought it was something that was just important to touch on, to weave into the stories. Not all of them hold mental health as their central theme, but it's often in the background.
When you're creating these stories, do you see yourself thinking about the overall theme, or are you just going with the characters? How do you decide to put all these pieces together? And this story specifically to me, I was like, I don't know if I would have been brave enough to be like, he looks sad and lonely, let me go save him, and jump into this like blind date that this poor guy is like, you looked a little different. How did you decide it?
So, this story came about a little differently than the others. Normally, I go very voice driven. I'll start with a character and a line that's bouncing in my head.
Okay.
But this one actually comes from Jimmy Fallon's hashtags.
Okay.
And the hashtag, I think, was worst date or worst blind date. And so this person shared that this girl sat down at his table. He was waiting for a blind date. She did not say a word for the entire meal. She ate And then she just left, and another woman came along who was his actual blind date. And it blew my mind. Like, how could this happen? How could this woman have known he was waiting for a blind date? And just how do you rip someone off like that, right?
Well, did you really rip him off? Because, you know, he didn't have to sit there for a whole meal by himself. Like, let's be honest.
Yes, absolutely. He did. Yeah.
I'm sure he was like, that was the most uncomfortable bunch of like, I just sat there and like, she doesn't say anything. So that concept, like, was brilliant because I'm like, I don't know if I would have done that. But the fact that it happened to somebody else, I'm even more traumatized. I was like, ooh, that's weird. Inspiration,
Very
you kind of pointed it out. Let's go deeper into that. Ideas that bounce in your head. When do you decide to tackle that idea? Or do you like, okay, you're number 55, like take a cue. Like, when does that happen?
So I keep a notes app with first
Oh,
lines, and when I'm feeling blocked, I'll open it up and then I'll pick one and I'll start writing from there. And very casually, though, like either I'll write in the notes app itself or just open a notebook and scribble some just to warm myself to the idea of the story. If I open a Word file, like formally, and sit myself down and think, yes, I'm writing a story today, that just leads to writer's block for me. I get inside my own head, so I self censor, and that's not conducive to the creative process.
you sound like you're very lenient with yourself, which I love it because sometimes I think as authors, we want to force ourselves to get this done because we have to do it. Would you describe yourself as a pantser or an outliner? Do you plot at all?
I never plot. I am a hardcore pantser. And there is one story in the collection where I knew the ending when I started, which was it's completely unusual for me. And that was the most difficult story to write. Yeah.
Give us a little more because I know our viewers, and we talked about it, the ones who've been watching us for a while, don't understand why pantsers do not want to outline. What is it about the outline process that you're all going like, can't do this? How does that work?
So the story is when I was 17, I tried to write a novel. And I took the sound advice that I should outline chapter by chapter. So I did that. Then I got 140 pages into the project, and I realized I wasn't interested enough in finishing it because I knew exactly what was going to happen. That's when I realized that my process, the whole point for me, is to write to discover what's going to happen to my characters.
I am a
Yeah.
plotter. I need the plot because my stories, I
Yeah.
hit page 30 and the idea is gone. And I'm like, well, that was exciting for today. So I completely the opposite. So when I talk to pantsers, I love it because I'm going, you guys are brave souls. I don't know if I can handle that pressure. So I just, as you're getting ready to promote the book and encourage people to kind of go on this amazing adventure with you, are you working on anything else? What's
Slowly,
okay?
slowly but surely, I'm working on more stories. I don't see myself writing a novel just because I do think it's sound practice to outline a longer project. I'm very much married to the idea of writing short fiction, and I love the little dopamine hit you get when you finish a story, and it's like, wow, I made something whole and complete. So I would find that very hard to give up for the process of writing like 90,000 words over a period of months and possibly years.
How long does it take you to do a short stories? Because you definitely are knocking them out. So how long is your current process for that?
You know, that varies some. Um, I have written an entire piece that was actually very solid and not revised that much in the space of an afternoon.
Okay.
That is the exception for me. Often I'm spending a week or two to get a solid draft of something I can then revise and move forward with.
I like it. That is actually a really good time frame. So as
Yeah.
you're looking at putting these short stories together, I'm loving the fact that you're very comfortable in your process and you know what you enjoy. You're like, maybe not really. I enjoy this quick hit and getting it out there. Where do you get your inspiration from? So you said first line. Do you get them walking down the street? Do you listen to music? Because you mentioned writer's block as well. So we got all these pieces that I wanted you to tell us. How do you handle them all? So tell us.
So sometimes music does come in as a factor. Often I'll be listening to the same song on repeat when I'm working with a story because
Okay.
it's almost like the song captures the theme of the story for me that I might not have like articulated to myself, but I just want the feeling the song gives me to be the feeling the reader has when they read the story. So that helps me some with writer's block. And then in terms of finding the ideas, it's weird. Like I'll be doing other things. It's very much if I'm struggling on the page, okay, I need to get my hands in some pie dough or something and do something else so that I can let the idea percolate some in my head. I do let ideas simmer before I sit down to write. I just like to have, I guess, a little bit of a sense of where I'm going, of a sense of the voice, what could happen to this person.
That's such a great way of looking at it. You're working on different short stories, you got all these pieces together. Do you normally read on the same genre that you write, or are you looking for something totally different? Like, are you a romance reader, but you write short stories? Like, how does that work for you? What do you actually get yourself lost in?
I read a lot of short fiction,
Okay.
and before I was putting the collection together, I read lots of novels too. But what happened is I got to this point where the collection was ready to send out to publishers, and I needed my comps. So I was like, get me all the current short fiction that I can. And I was on a steady diet of that. And now I'm finally just getting off of it and integrating novels and novellas. And I don't just read literary fiction. I do like romance. I actually cut my teeth on romance when I was an adolescent. My grandmother used to pick up romance novels at yard sales, 25 cents a pop. And she had apple crates that she would just give to us. And I would
Wow,
just burn through them over the summer. It was fantastic.
that is so awesome. So, Miss Linda, tell us, what advice would you give to an up and coming author who's interested in just tackling either short story or just getting published? What would you tell them?
Be true to yourself, right? That's very important. But also find your community because getting feedback is a really important part of the process. It's a little bit lonely as a writer when you're in the trenches and working on that first draft. But if you can find just a couple readers that you trust to give you constructive feedback, that's so valuable. And it's not that you have to integrate every suggestion someone gives you, but there is almost a collaborative aspect to that where you have the opportunity to read someone else's work and think about how stories are built and revised. And that's a privilege. And it's a privilege to have people who are willing to do that for you as well.
That is such a great advice. And sometimes I think as authors, we spend a lot of times by ourselves. So we assume the whole entire process of us to be that way. So such a good way to find readers and authors to give you kind of feedback. Absolutely. Ms. Linda, tell us, where can our viewers and our listeners find you? Where they can learn more about you, the books, and where they can find the collection? Tell us.
Absolutely. So the collection is available in the US on Amazon.com as well as at Barnes and Noble. And these are both for pre-order. It is released on September 1st. If you're in Canada, you can find it at amazon.ca and Chapters and Indigo. And then you can find me at www.lindawilliams.ca. And I'm also on Instagram as Lynda Williams, all lowercase, underscore author.
Ooh, super easy to find. Everybody can connect. Amazing. I love it. Miss Linda, it's been so much fun talking to you. But before you leave, are you ready for the lightning round?
Okay,
Super easy. Let's not think too much about this. You ready?
ready.
Let's see. Home cooked meals or restaurant?
Home cook.
Nice. As I figure we're talking about restaurants, this just fit with today's theme. Sweet or sour?
Sweet.
Nice. City or country?
Oh, that's tough. I grew up in the country and I've lived in the city for 20 years. I think I'm a city girl now.
You have been converted. I agree with you. Early bird or night owl?
Early bird.
Thank you. Me too. Here's a little different. Let's see how you do with this one. If you could have any superpower, what would it be?
Invisibility.
Okay, why?
I think it would just be such a great tool as a writer, just to be that fly on the wall where you could eavesdrop on anything. And yeah, I would just, oh, the stories that would come from that.
I think I'm much more afraid to find out what people are really thinking. And it's just telling me, I'm like, I don't think I needed to know all of that.
That's a good point.
I'm a little bit more paranoid. I was like, I don't think I know all of that. Miss Lynda, it has been truly a pleasure. Do you have any closing remarks for us?
Just to say thank you so much for having me and have a wonderful day.
Thank you so much, Madame. Truly a pleasure. I'm so excited you joined us on the show. Congratulations on the upcoming release. Can't wait to hear about it. And when you have your next book, come and see us.
Absolutely. Thank you.
To our viewers, go ahead, get the pre-order. Check out Miss Lynda. Also, go ahead and check out her website. You don't want to miss all the fun things she has going on. This collection truly is going to inspire you, make you think a little different about going on a blind date for the next time as well. So make sure to pick up the book. If you're new to the podcast, remember, subscribe. You don't want to miss a single episode. We are here, bring you exciting authors with incredible books. And if you're watching us live, I'll be back at, trying to think, 1:05 Central Time with another author to truly get you guys inspired with amazing books. So I'll see you soon. Bye, guys.